This next company is at the forefront of fashion and tech and recently debuted its open beta for fashion enthusiasts and designers. Joining us now is ALTAVA CMO Oh Thongsrinoon. Oh, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Nice job on the name.
Thank you. It's always great when I can pronounce our guests' names correctly. So thank you for helping me before this show. But let's talk all about Altava. We're mixing fashion with technology, and you've just debuted a platform that makes it a lot easier to create digitized versions of fashionable items. Talk to me about Altava.
Yeah, well, where do we start? Because ALTAVA itself, we have three versions, I like to say. So in our short history of 5 years, we went through three iterations. So we could talk about the current one, which is AI centric, or we can start from the beginning. Which version we like?
Let's start from the beginning. Talk to me about the different versions and how you ended up where we are here today.
Wow. If you can entertain me, I would compress the 5 years into maybe a couple minutes.
Thank
So
you.
basically,
Thank you.
basically, Altawa, we started out as a fashion tech, in a fashion tech incubator program under LVMH, La Maison des Startup. I think most people know LVMH as one of the biggest luxury goods conglomerate in the world, and most probably have no idea that they actually have a fashion tech startup incubator, and actually we came from that, right? And the company started out focusing on avatar system and virtual try-on system. So that's actually where we came from. And I would say like late 2021, we at the height or in the midst of the second crypto bull run, right? I think we started to take a look at the Web3 space seriously, and we decided to dive into it because when we look at the metaverse, a lot of the foundational piece that was being developed for it, we are already doing that a couple of years ago, when we started out. So we see that it's such a natural evolution of where we were to where we should be at that time, which is the metaverse. So we become a metaverse company, and we build our own fashion, luxury fashion metaverse. Using our avatar system, using our virtual try-on system, right? And because of our relationship with LVMH and our co-founders, tight relationship with that group, we were able to get a lot of big brands like Prada, Balmain, Burberry, Armani, just to name a few, and digitize their catalogs into 3D assets so that people can play around with the avatar and try different hairstyles, different outfits. So that's kind of where we were, and the metaverse itself is called Worlds of View, and it's actually still available today on Apple Play Store and Google Play Store and Apple App Store. Fast forward to 2023, April of last year, we start to get a lot of requests from other virtual worlds because sometimes I take for granted our connection to the luxury fashion industry, but it's actually quite in kind of almost a mafia. They're like a clique, so you're either in or you're not in. And fortunately, our co-founder, Elizabeth, she's actually in the clique. So, so we kind of, then people start to come and say, hey, look, we like for you guys to also help to bring some of those luxury fashion items into our world, right? Because we try to contact these different brands, and with no luck. So, we thought, oh, that's an interesting, opportunity, right? So, and we started to get a lot of those. But we are also a startup too. So, we have limited resource, and we start to build our own in-house tools, which is actually based on generative AI, which we customize, right? So that was like the genesis of ALTAVA AI platform today. And, and then at one point we realized that, hey, this pain point that a lot of these virtual worlds have, if we create something at the platform level that not only them, but, just any designer can utilize, we can really democratize the process. And that's kind of how ALTAVA AI platform came to be.
I want to talk about the democratization of the process. You mentioned that the luxury fashion world is very much a click, and no matter how great your ideas are, I think that some designers find themselves outside of that click. Talk to me about how technology can help democratize fashion, and is there a way to break these clicks down with platforms like this?
I would partially say yes. So let me take a stab at it because again, right? Because our co-founder, she's in that clique, so we basically have that instant credibility when we talk to them. So right away, there's a trust factor, right? They kind of know we know what they want. So basically, they already have that trust from the beginning, right? So then it's just a matter of figuring out the solution for them. And when I say them, I mean the luxury fashion brands. So what we hope to do is that um, we use our platform to basically bring these brands into it, and then try to use the same platform to connect the brands to these independent designers, and we could kind of start perhaps with different kind of campaign and type things to kind of get that side used to how these things work, and hopefully they'll see the benefits, and perhaps that will become the bridge for them to do more engagement with the community moving forwad. So we hope we can do our part in that sense. Right?
Talk to me about the users of this platform. You mentioned some pretty big names, Burberry, Prada, Balmain, and creating digital versions of some of the items. How much do people actually want these items? What kind of user base are you seeing interested in this?
Actually, what's interesting is that when you look at virtual world, it has been around a long time, right? Well before Metaverse. I would say like 20, 30, plus years. And surprisingly, virtual world that focus on women audience actually have a pretty large audience in that regard. And when just like real world, every time we put out new collections from brands versus the stuff that we create ourselves, for example, we always see that the usage skew toward unknown brands, right? Because I guess for some of these people, they realize that hey, in the real world, let's say a product bag may cost him $1,000, $2,000, and a dress may cost him a couple thousand. But at least in this world, they can kind of try it on, without paying a lot less than they would in the real world, for example. So I surprisingly, I think the usage pattern does reflect the real world to a certain degree.
What platforms can we look to kind of inform what the metaverse might look like in the future? And I ask that because whenever I think the ideas that I hear on this show are far-fetched, I think about platforms like Roblox and Fortnite, and I see that the things we're talking about, the foundation is already being laid. So I'm curious what platforms you look to as you build towards this future where we're spending more of our lives online.
So I think Roblox and Fortnite are definitely the right answer. But in addition to those, I would say the platforms that we actually really looked at, it would be things like VR chat, TikTok, and Snap. So actually, with our platform, people can create something as great as items for platforms like let's say Fortnite. But of course, that requires more skill sets. But at the lower level of the spectrum, they can create, let's say, a VR filter, for use on Snapchat or TikTok or objects inside VR chat, and eventually Apple Vision Pro because there's a commonality there. So those, I think those actually are something that is even more a telltale sign because that's a consumer level, where people just really engage with each other kind of constantly, right? So I would say that the first two that you mentioned plus those three in addition.
We talk about creators, and I look at some of the creators that come from the traditional art world, the digital art world, and a big conversation that we have here is one around a lot of creators who come from different backgrounds and cultures being locked out of the more established traditional aspects of art and fashion. Do you think that technology like AI and blockchain uh, open a door, create a pathway for those who have previously not been able to participate in these worlds to get their toes wet and create a name for themselves?
It's not a end all be all solution because at the end of the day, AI and blockchain are still tools. So I think what's perhaps is more important is platform, let's say like ours, and hopefully we're not the only one, right? That understand that ecosystem composed of creators, brands, and platforms like other platforms and other virtual worlds where they can create their goods and distribute and sell to those worlds, or get their goods that they create and show that to the brands. So ideally, there'll be a platform that can connect these key stakeholders. And I think that's probably even more important than the AI and the blockchain itself, because otherwise, if you are just AI and blockchain, you create a 3D assets. What's next, right? Because I think we're trying to be that last mile for them, if you could say that.
Metaverse became popular during the last bull market, during the bear. The conversations around Metaverse became a little bit more muted than some of the conversations we were having about other technologies. But it looks like we're heading into another bull cycle. What do you think the narrative around Metaverse is going to be as we head into the next bull market?
There's always two extremes, right? So when things are great, is the best thing since sliced bread. When things are bad, it's just disastrous. But I think the truth is somewhere in between, and same for this cycle. I think, but I think we kind of perhaps have to move away from metaverse in the sense that because when you say metaverse, it's very Web3, right? But we could probably agree that the biggest audience are still on the Web2 side of things. So I think the best product would be something where users who comes in from Web2 or Web3, they would know when transaction or something happened on blockchain or outside of blockchain, off-chain, on-chain, right? Because for them, that should be seen as from the UI UX standpoint. And I think same thing with virtual worlds. In an ideal situation, right? They play virtual world and there are certain parts of the blockchain thing happen, let's say tokenization of certain things or on-chain transaction. Hopefully that can be so seamless that they don't feel that, right? And I think that would be the really ideal situation. So I think that the next iteration of the metaverse, at least in my opinion, would be something of that nature.
Okay, I want to talk about some of the features now in Altava. Two of them are text to 3D and image to 3D features. Tell me a little bit more about how folks can use the platform to create cool digital fashion items.
First of all, it's very easy. You just go to altava.com and right there, and then you see image to 3D and you see text to 3D prompt, right? So keep in mind that this is still very much an open alpha, we like to call it. So it's still work in progress, but the most mature function that we offer today would be image to 3D. So with image to 3D, as the name implies, right, you upload any image that you have, and within a certain amount of time, the AI will then create like a 3D iteration of that. The difference, the question that may arise that how's that, let's say, different from other generative AI like Midjourney, right, or ChatGPT, right? Because those guys, and you can also generate maybe some kind of image output. But I think in our case, we emphasize the term 3D, real 3D, meaning that the 3D object that's generated from the image, you can actually then upload that into a 3D program and actually work on that asset immediately. So I think that's what makes it, really, we were one of the first out of the gate, as far as I know. So that's something that we're quite proud of.
Oh, thank you so much for joining the show today. It's been a pleasure.